Cougar Tracks rolls on here on KSL NewsRadio and the KSL Sports YouTube page. Mitch Harper with you. Every day we're holding it down on YouTube, on News Radio, giving you daily content on the Cougs, the BYU teams that you love, right here on Cougar Tracks. And Saturday is going to be the fourth meeting all time between BYU and East Carolina. Kickoff is at 5:30 p.m. Extended pregame coverage from Greenville will begin at noon right here on KSL News Radio. Myself and Kyle Ireland will be out there at Dowdy-Ficklin Stadium getting you ready for the Cougs and the Pirates. And I remember being at Big 12 spring meetings in Texas in 2024, and I was talking to Tom Holmoe, the former BYU AD, at those meetings, and I asked him about the 2025 schedule because remember at that time, BYU needed a power conference game. They had SUU, East Carolina, and a power conference game to be determined. And I asked Tom if he was actually going to go through with playing East Carolina on the road because I thought, okay, you're a power conference team now, 2 time zones away against a group of 5 squad. Are you actually going to play that game? And he said, yeah, we're going to play that game. They're doing it. And it's going to be an energetic crowd in Greenville, potentially maybe eclipses the 50,000 mark. The highest attended game at Dowdy-Ficklin Stadium was more than 51,000 fans back in 2022. So we'll see if maybe some history is created with this game. It's not very often that East Carolina is getting power conference teams to roll into Greenville these days. And so BYU is doing something that very few actually do. But one thing is for sure, these games between these two have been very entertaining. 2015, the series started when BYU was an FBS independent. BYU won in Provo. They donned the royal blue jerseys when that wasn't common. Back then, it was more navy blue was always being worn. Royal blue was brought out selectively in BYU games, so that was a big deal. BYU took down the Pirates 45-38. Remember in that game, East Carolina jumped out to a 14-0 lead. Tanner Mangum stormed back, got BYU back out in front. He then gets injured. Bo Hodge comes into the game. BYU squanders their lead. ECU ties it up. I think they even took the lead back again. Mangum returned, and then BYU pulled it off at the end, but that was a crazy game, 45-38. I remember there was a lot of love from Bronco Mendenhall to Ruffin McNeil, the former East Carolina coach, who then the next year, when Bronco left for Virginia, he hired Ruffin McNeil because McNeil was kind of under fire. It was his last season at ECU, and Bronco was really appreciative and respectful of Ruffin McNeil. He even hired him the following year on his Virginia staff. But that was an entertaining football game, BYU and ECU in 2015. Then 2 years later, not so much interesting and entertaining, just the grind, man. It was 2017, so say less if you're a BYU fan. East Carolina beat BYU 33-17. They were up 33-10 with 3.5 minutes to go. And remind you, East Carolina was giving up 50 points per game. 50 points per game going into that game. And BYU only had 10 points with 3.5 minutes to go until they scored a late touchdown to Matt Bushman to make it 33-17. I will go to my grave saying this. The 2017 BYU team was the worst BYU team I've ever witnessed and probably will ever witness. That team just had nothing. And I know it was controversial at the time to fire Ty Detmers, the offensive coordinator, but it had to be done because that game, it was like, there is no hope. There is zero hope that this offense is ever going to turn the corner if you can't score points on this Scotty Montgomery ECU team that is giving up 50+ to everyone. Couldn't believe it. And I remember that broadcast, too, was on CBS Sports Network. They had a camera shot on the sideline. It was Tavita Ofengawe, and they had Kalani Sitake listed on the lower third. They thought it was Kalani out there, so they kept panning the camera to Tavita Ofengawe. They kept thinking that was Kalani. It's like he has no headset on. Come on now. Gardner Minshew stepped into that game for East Carolina, had 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns. Tough day for BYU. A low point. Honestly, one of the lowest points, probably the history of BYU football, losing that game. Because East Carolina was bad that season. And BYU, it just realized they have nothing offensively. Just really a poor game. Both teams were 1-6. It was a bad night. 2022, East Carolina beat BYU 27-24. Going into that game, BYU was beaten and battered. They suffered terrible losses to Arkansas, to Liberty. Defense was getting hammered. It was actually a respectable output by the defense that night against ECU, only giving up 27. Because remember, Liberty put up a 40-piece. KJ Jefferson in Arkansas had more than 600 yards 2 weeks prior. It was a tough game. Chase Roberts had a touchdown pass in this game, but ECU got a knuckleball field goal from Andrew Conrad for 33 yards to win it. BYU, on the flip side, their kicker situation was a mess. Jake Oldroyd returned as the starter because remember in that Notre Dame game, they made a change a few weeks prior in Vegas. Gosh, I'm trying to think of who the kicker was. I think it was Justin Smith. He missed an extra point. That whole season, they had no stability at kicker. It seems like a distant memory now because since the year after, they got Will Ferrin, and Will Ferrin's been nails. He's been outstanding at kicker for BYU. But that was a up and down time for BYU that season. It started with so much promise. They were a preseason top 25 team, knocked off Baylor, but then the slog, Independence hit, losses started to pile up, and BYU suffered a loss to ECU 27-24. So the Pirates have a 2-1 lead in this series. BYU will look to tie it up, and Kalani's looking for his first win over ECU. After that 22 game, ECU, I remember, trolled BYU saying basically you got the wrong Big 12 team because they went back-to-back weeks knocking off UCF and BYU, two teams that were gearing up for their first year in the Big 12 the following season. So interesting history between BYU and East Carolina. It's all happened in the past decade, and now these two teams will meet 2 days from now in Greenville, 5:30 kick here on KSL News Radio and ESPN2, and it's definitely going to be an entertaining ball game. That's for sure. Cannot wait. I'll be out there tomorrow. I'll have Cougar Tracks and then catch a flight to Raleigh and then drive over to Greenville, North Carolina for BYU and East Carolina. Make sure to subscribe to Cougar Tracks wherever you get your podcast. Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Would appreciate that greatly. And make sure to subscribe to the KSL Sports YouTube page. Like this video. Helps out the show a ton. I will talk to you tomorrow here on the Cougar Tracks podcast, and it's powered by KSLSports.com.